G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to Cold Waters with Mags, and welcome back aboard the USS L.MENDEL Rivers SSN 686, Sturgeon-class nuclear-powered attack submarine. So first things first, you may notice the format here has changed a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit more casual with these videos at the moment, a little bit more relaxed, which is kind of appropriate for this particular mission, because this was, well, you're going to see. So anyways, we are currently in the North Sea. We have come across a November class. Now, as you can see, I've been in the water for a little bit at this point in time. In fact, I've been in the match already, or this battle already, for around about 10 minutes. I've been circling through the area, just listening to see what I could find, and to position myself to fire this Mk.II towards the November. Now, I have to be relatively sneaky about this launch, because as you can see, the Mk.II is not fast. Now, I spoke about this in the past, but it's worth mentioning here again. The Mk.II has two speeds. It has a transit speed and it has an active speed. Its transit speed is only 17 knots. Once the torpedo activates, however, it accelerates to 26 knots and starts actively searching for targets. Now, I've been playing the 1968 campaign for a little bit at this time, and I've played around with some of the other subs on it. I'm not entirely convinced it actually hits 26 reliably inside of cold waters. In fact, it seems to move at a maximum of around 25, which just happens to be exactly the same top speed as my submarine, and exactly the same top speed as the November that I'm trying to sneakily eliminate at this point in time. And so far, things are looking pretty good. The November is maintaining course, it's still only doing 10 knots. It seems to be unaware of the Mk.II that's coming towards it, which is a good thing, because this is going to take a little while. I hope you brought coffee. Getting close now. We're under a killer yard at this point. And I'm just doing a little bit of wire control here. And there's the noisemaker, and the November's starting to accelerate. It's aware of the torpedo, so now we'll turn on the active sonar. I had the active sonar turned off because I didn't want the November to hear the pings and be aware of what was coming in before we were close enough. Weapon as acquired. Now I'm using the wire here to try and cut the corner on the November's turn, because as I said, the November can accelerate out to 25 knots. You'll see why anyway. Alright, we're cutting the corner nicely, we're getting it nice and close, and there's the noisemaker, but it doesn't matter, we're well past the noisemaker at this point. Boom. And the November is not down, the November is still running. Well, shit. Alright, ready, torpedo 4, go active on the sonar straight away. And fire for a lead.
Aye, sir.
Tube 4 is clear. And it looks like the November heard the launch. It appears to be turning away at this point. Get rid of that. And yep, it's turning away from the torpedo and turning away from us. To be clear, I don't think the November can actually hear us at this point, but it knows there's a torpedo coming. So manually take control of the wire to make sure it's pointed down the exit vector for the November, and making the torpedo go active accelerates the torpedo to its maximum speed. And at this point, I need to turn onto the tail of the November to make sure the wire doesn't break.
Come right to 071 L.I.
But at the moment, of course, I'm only doing 5 knots. Now, this was fine when the November was coming towards me, and it's likely why the November never heard me to begin with. But I'm not going to be able to keep up with the November. It's accelerated out to 25 knots now, so out to 15. And the torpedo is not closing on the November. It's holding distance. So accelerate the submarine to 25 knots. And so the chase begins. Now, I'm sure you can see the problem here. The November is doing 25 knots. My Sturgeon is doing 25 knots, and the torpedo in between us is also doing 25 knots. And so this continued. Now at the moment we're running at time acceleration. Even under time acceleration, this lasted until this torpedo ran out of fuel. For the records, that's about 6 minutes of real time under time acceleration.
Right 2072, helm I.
Now, the November has absolutely no idea I'm here because I'm sitting right in its baffle, so even though I'm doing 25 knots, it doesn't have the slightest clue of what's going on behind it. It just knows that there's a torpedo there and the torpedo is actively pinging, and this continued through until the torpedo finally self-destructed and the November turned around. And here's where I have my chance, because the November turned around but it didn't slow down. It's still doing 25 knots. However, as soon as I saw the turn start, immediately went to silent running. Dropped silent, let myself drift down in speed. So the November is completely blind at this point in time. Even though it's driving almost directly into the front of me at this point, it has no idea that I'm right here. So I don't have to close on it. It's going to close on me, and it's going to close on my torpedo. So I just need to wait. And of course, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that November was actually doing 26 knots, and it's still doing 26 knots. It hasn't slowed down at all. Current range, 1.7 kiliyards, closing in. I've got 95% solution, and it still cannot see me. And we're almost close enough here. I'm looking for sub 1.5 kiliyards. We're now at 1.4. Get a little closer. Alright, torpedo away. We're down to 1.2 kiliyards. Now this is a short-range shot, so the torpedo will go active almost straight away. Torpedo is already active and homing. Alright, we've got control of the torpedo. Now we're going to take control of the torp via the wire and start diving in on the top of the November. And the November's starting to try and surface. Torpedo is acquired. And we just lost the wire, but that's alright. It's not a problem. The torpedo has acquired, it's tracking. Active sonar is on. We just have to have patience. Any time now. Alright, come on torpedo, he's turning now, you can close in on that. God, I never realised exactly how annoying this sonar ping is. And he's dropped a noisemaker, so you're getting him close enough. Come on, get him. Get in there. Come on, mate. Almost there. This is like one of those torture gifts, you know, the one where you know something's going to happen and the second before it does, it just keeps cutting off and then cycling back over again. I should do a 10-hour loop of this submarine just circling without this torpedo ever hitting. Come on. Alright, the November's starting to straighten up, close in, you can get him now. Almost there. Got proximity detonate, you kill him at this point. Finally. And you know what the sad part is? The only reason that torpedo hit is because the AI straightened up. If the AI had maintained a full turn as it was indefinitely, the torpedo would have ran out of fuel before it actually hit the hull of that November. But on the upside, we have now completed the objective. There were no other submarines in the area. I checked beforehand. The area is completely clear. It was just this November, and we have just taken it out. So, now we can move on. As expected, the area is completely clear. Leave combat. Get fucked. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. Yeah, this is more of a trial of patience than anything else. So far at this point in time in the campaign, I've managed to complete just enough missions to keep the status between me and the Soviet forces at about 50-50. But we're not winning this war at the moment. Anyways, until next time, dive smart, dive safe, and I'll catch you in the depths.